You watched the video. You nodded. You felt seen. Maybe you even sent it to someone you know. And then you closed the app, lay back down, and did exactly what you always do. That moment, right there, is what nobody is talking about. The real trap isn't not knowing what's wrong with you. The real trap is knowing everything that's wrong with you and still not moving. Think about it honestly. You've watched the videos, read the articles, maybe even gone to therapy. You can explain your own psychology better than most people in the room. You know about the inner child, the ego protection, the fear of failure, the provisional life. You understand all of it, and yet, here you are. Again. In the same place. Feeling the same way. So let me ask you something. If knowledge was enough, why hasn't it worked yet? It's not your ADHD. It's not your childhood. It's not the economy or the job market. It's something far more dangerous, because it hides behind the one thing you're proud of, your intelligence. Most men who never truly grow up don't lack information. They lack integration. They've turned self-awareness into a new version of the same old escape. Understanding themselves became the thing they do instead of changing. This is the second trap, the one that comes after the breakthrough, after the first video. It's more dangerous than the first trap because it feels like progress. It looks like growth from the outside. But it's just a more sophisticated way of standing still. Here's something that happens inside your brain every time you have a real insight about yourself. You feel relief. Not because you changed, because you explained yourself. And relief, psychologically, has almost the same effect as actually solving a problem. Your brain registers. Situation understood, threat neutralized. And it moves on. But nothing was neutralized. You just got better at narrating your own stuck life. Think about the last time you watched something like this and walked away feeling like something shifted. How long did that feeling last? A day? A few hours? And then, what did you do differently? Every insight that doesn't become action quietly builds another layer between you and reality. You don't feel it happening. That's what makes it so effective. The man-child avoided life by gaming and scrolling. The version who watched that video. He avoids life by watching more videos about why he avoids life. Different behavior. Same result. Inside every man who never truly grew up, there is a voice that sounds exactly like wisdom. It says, "The system is broken anyway. Working yourself to death isn't growth, it's compliance. I need more time to understand myself before I act." Real maturity isn't about external achievements. And here's the uncomfortable part. None of those thoughts are completely wrong. The system is flawed. Self-understanding matters. External achievement isn't everything, but that's exactly why this voice is so dangerous. It uses truth as a weapon against you. Psychologists call this intellectualization, using rational thought to avoid emotional experience. It's one of the most common defenses in people who are genuinely intelligent. The smarter you are, the better your brain gets at building arguments for why you shouldn't feel discomfort. The man-child isn't stupid. He's often the most perceptive person in the room. And that perception becomes the most sophisticated cage he ever built for himself. Ask yourself honestly, how many times has a good argument inside your own head stopped you cold? Everyone talks about the fear of failure. But there's something underneath that almost nobody names. The fear of success. Think about what happens if you finally try, really try, with everything you have, and it works. If it works, you can never go back to the comfort of, "I just haven't tried yet." That alibi disappears forever, and for a man living inside his own potential for years, it's all he owns. It's the reason he's still special, still different, still waiting for the right moment. Success destroys the alibi. And some part of him knows that. So some part of him makes sure success never quite arrives. Not through laziness, through precision. He gets close enough to feel the possibility and then pulls back just in time. You've been here before. A new opportunity shows up. Real motivation, real energy. Things start moving. And then, somehow, you slow down. You miss something small. You pull back. You find a reason it won't work. You've probably blamed this on fear of failure. But what's actually happening is more specific than that. Your nervous system is doing its job, protecting you from an unfamiliar state. For years, your baseline has been a particular tension, the hum of potential going unused. That tension is painful, but it's familiar. And familiar, to the nervous system, means safe. When things start working, when you actually move forward, your system reads that as danger. Not because growth is dangerous, because your body has never learned to feel safe while growing. So it pulls you back to familiar ground. The man-child doesn't fear the bottom. He fears the climb, because he's never trusted himself at the top. Behind almost every man who refuses to grow up, there is a moment. Sometimes it's one clear moment. Sometimes it's a long series of smaller ones. A moment where he tried, genuinely tried, and it was used against him. Where he was vulnerable and was mocked. Where he worked hard and was overlooked. Where he loved someone and was abandoned anyway. Where he opened up and found out it was a liability. So he built a world inside his mind where none of that could reach him. A world where he was always about to become something extraordinary. Where failure was always temporary and potential was always intact. And he called that world freedom, but it isn't freedom. It's a fortress with no door. The very intelligence that built those walls could tear them down. If he chose to use it differently. You don't need another video to tell you what's wrong with you. You've known for a while. What you need is to stop using that knowledge as a reason to stay exactly where you are. Because the man who keeps watching videos about men who don't change is the man who isn't changing. So what actually shifts? What does it look like when this second trap finally breaks? It doesn't look like a motivational surge. It doesn't feel like suddenly having all the answers. You stop analyzing the fear and start doing the thing despite the fear. You stop waiting to feel ready and start trusting that readiness comes through the action, not before it. You stop building a perfect version of yourself in your head and start building an imperfect one in the world. Not because you've finally figured yourself out, but because figuring yourself out is no longer the requirement. The nervous system doesn't learn it's safe to grow by reading about growth. It learns by surviving the discomfort of actually growing and discovering that it didn't destroy you. That's not a philosophy. That's biology. And it's available to you right now. Not after the next video. Not after the next insight. Now. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate." That first video was about making the unconscious conscious. And that's real. That matters. But there's a step after that, the one that's harder to make sound beautiful. What you do after the lights come on. Because awareness without action is just a more comfortable version of being lost. You know what's holding you back now. The only question left is the one only you can answer. What are you going to do with that tonight? If this described your life, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe. We're just getting started. Subscribe. We're just getting started.